Thanks for taking the time to download the Inside the Jungle podcast. To send along your feedback about this show, send your emails to insidethejungle@spnt.tv.
Hey, what's happening, Bengals fans? Inside the Jungle, episode 179. It's the postseason episode of Inside the Jungle. Glad you could join us. Lots to talk about this week. We'll recap Sunday's loss to the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk about some of the coaching staff. Should there be changes? And we'll look into our good football in the 2015 offseason. It's the Wednesday Night Roundtable, CCJungle.com.
This is the Wednesday Night Roundtable
with Nick Superling, Mickey Menzer, Anthony Cosenza, and Scott Bantel.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. This is the Inside the Jungle podcast, the Wednesday Night Roundtable. The fearsome foursome back together again. It's been, well, a couple weeks. Glad everybody's back. Superling hanging out with my three amigos. I'll start with the bearded one himself. Mickey Menzer, we have something in common. I still have my playoff beard, and you do too.
Yeah, my playoffs are still alive, I guess, for another one of my teams, so that's good, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Buckeyes, congratulations.
Thanks. I'm sure you're not too happy about it, but I'm pretty pumped.
I have no skin in the game. I was actually listening to the game at work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I listened to a Buckeyes game.
That was a big win for the Buckeyes, big win for the Big Ten. I was nervous they were going to, follow the Buckeyes of recent and get blown out in a game that some people thought they shouldn't have been in, but it's cool how they silenced that. So at least I had that going for me, and still do.
You still do. It's a big game for them Monday night, which I know you're pumped about. And Glenn, it's good seeing you again. It's been a couple weeks. So I know you went to Indy. We'll talk about that here shortly. Let's welcome in another guy who went to Indy, Scott Bantel. Sounded like you had a little fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun in Indy, just not a lot of fun at the game itself. So, kind of unfortunately the same story we've been used to the last 4 years now.
Glad you're back. Glad you made it home safe. It sounds like he had quite the time. And we also want to welcome in Anthony Cosenza over on the left coast. I hope the birthday party went well.
I missed the second half, so I caught the part that was worth watching, at least for the Bengals. But I guess happy Groundhog Day to you guys, huh?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it seems like we've been there, done that in the last 4 years. So I'm going to start with the man who's been to three, who's personally witnessed them in person, 3 out of the last 4. Mickey Menzer, start us off with your best and worst of Sunday.
I'm gonna go a little outside the box here because there's some easy pickings for the worst. But I'm gonna say my absolute worst is I left Cincinnati kind of late. I left at 9 o'clock, and my thermostat in my car said 48. And when we got to Indy, it was freaking cold. It was freezing, like probably 28. 20-degree drop in an hour and 40-minute drive. And that was probably my worst. And I'm going to tie that in. And this is so unlike me. I was quiet. I decided, I'm not going to run my mouth. I'm not going to talk smack. We go to this bar called the Whistle Stop in Indy. I order some beers. These two, I'm going to call them idiot Indy fans, are talking to me. And they're like, who do you really think on the Bengals team has a shot of beating us? And so I was like, yeah, we got a lot of people hurt. And so they kept at me, and I said, finally I was like, well, Jeremy Hill, and they're like, what are you going to do when we stack the box? And I was like, we got Mohamed Sanu, and they're like, who? And, like, 2 things happened. Their arrogance made me want to just smash their heads against the bar. And then their logic made me think, like, this might not be a good day. Like, that's my first time I was like, they might have a ridiculously good point. So, turns out they did. So that's my tie-in to my 2 worst. The best was when we left the stadium. I like to stay till the end of the game. So I was there, and we're walking out, and I'm just ready for it. I am ready to just get slaughtered by the Indy fans. And I barely heard a peep. I could feel the pity they had towards me, and I appreciated that they weren't piling on. So that's my best. Indy fans were pretty classy to me.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you got out of there unscathed. It sounds like too when you went to Houston they weren't bad either. So you've had some good luck.
I mean, I guess it's easy to be a good fan when you win. So,
True.
Yeah, maybe situation would be different if I was walking out of there if the Bengals win, but
situation might be different too if you're walking out of Heinz Field when Pittsburgh won.
True. This is true.
How about you, Scotty? You were there. Sounds like it was cold. Your best and worst?
Yeah, it was cold. We made it outside for the tailgate for maybe an hour or two, and then we two ducked into a bar. The worst, I'm going to say the run game, and more specifically, Hugh Jackson's, getting away from it. The quarter where the Bengals were the most competitive was the first quarter. I know they were stacking the box, but they did run it 10 times with 62 yards. So they had some success, and they just got away from it, and I'm not sure why. But the good, I'll say Rex Burkhead. A guy that we had talked about. A guy that a lot of us were excited to see. Didn't see much all year, and he started that game out and made some big plays, and you would have liked to seen some of that maybe earlier in the year.
Mike Silver on NFL Network was talking about he had some inside information regarding the Bengals-Colts game, and he had spoken with Hugh Jackson throughout the week, and he said there was going to be an X factor in that game, and there was. His name was Rex Burkhead, and we got to see him quite a bit. It was good to see him. So good call there, Scott. How about you, AC?
I guess I'll start with the best, and that's what you mentioned earlier. Is I I didn't really get to watch the second half, which was pretty unwatchable from the little clips I saw at the venue I was at for my great aunt / grandmother's birthday. So I'm glad I got to miss a lot of the poor play in the second half, and they didn't score any points then. So I guess selfishly speaking, I'm glad I missed that. I got two worst. Number one would probably be just what a struggle it was when the Bengals did score points. I mean, it was just nothing seemed to be clicking all that well. I think Jeremy Hill had 3.6 yards per carry on the day. Even getting a field goal, it took a 57-yarder that doinked off the upright to get in there. I mean, it's just a miracle shot just to get 3 points. It was just a miserable day offensively. It was poor performances plus a ton of injuries that accumulated up, and it just wasn't really that pleasant to watch, to be honest with you. The second, and it's more of a big picture, but the loss kind of reinforced in my mind that this window for this team could be closing. If they've now had 4 years with a young crop of guys, some of which are now getting towards the end of their contracts, they haven't realize their potential, whether it's actually them getting on the field and contributing or winning a playoff game. And I'm really worried that this team that they've built that seems so deep and so talented is really just missing one of those real short windows that seem to exist for teams in the NFL.
Yeah, that's a good question and a good point, AC, about the window. We saw those same type of windows. We see it throughout the NFL and in the different eras. We saw it in the 90s with the Bills. I mean, their window was, they were there. I mean, they had an even bigger window, and they couldn't make it through. But you're right. I mean, I guess for me, my worst probably would be the fact that offensively they gave the Colts no challenge whatsoever because they were so one-dimensional. I mean, they knew that they couldn't be beat in the passing game. And so they stacked the box, and they made it very difficult on the Bengals running backs. And the same thing happened back in Week 7 when A.J. Green didn't play in that game. My best, I'll go because I like kickers. Mike Nugent, playoff Bengals record for a long field goal. It was almost close to an NFL playoff record. He was 1 yard shy. So kudos to Mike Nugent. And you got to give him a lot of credit, guys. After missing that kick against Carolina, he didn't miss a kick the rest of the year. That's pretty solid. Did he miss one? What, AC?
Pittsburgh, the long one in Pittsburgh,
oh,
yeah.
Never mind.
But that's still, that's a tough kick. But regardless, you're correct. He really played well the second half of the season.
Thank you for correcting me. I forgot about that kick. Yeah, that's a typical kicker. You got to forget the misses, right? So those are my best and worst. Now I know for those of you who didn't catch the post game show, there's been a lot of calls for some new coaching in Cincinnati, and I know our very own Mickey Menser wrote a nice post on Cincy Jungle this week about Marvin Lewis and whether or not he should stay. And I wanted to discuss this topic because I think it's worth mentioning. Now I'm going to read this email that we got from a listener this week. He says, Nick, I really don't want to hear fire Lewis, Gunther, etc. unless you can give me the name of someone who is available and who is better to replace them. An unnamed coach, quarterback, politician for that matter, will always be better than who is presently in that position. I am a longtime Bengals fan, and I remember the 90s. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Only make changes if you can improve. Things could be much worse is not a cop-out. It's a reality. And that's from Blind Howland. Now, I think that there comes a time where a coaching staff's message is no longer getting through to the team. We saw it in San Francisco with Jim Harbaugh, and I'm just wondering what your guys' thoughts are with this current team right now as it stands. Mickey, is it time for there to be a change in Cincinnati?
It's tough. I disagree with the email a little bit, and only the fact that people always want a name. And for coaching, it's much harder to do than if we were talking about Dalton, which we're not right now. But, if you said replace the quarterback, you can name the current quarterbacks. There are a ridiculous amount of coaches out there from the college ranks. There's some no-name guy that's going to be the next Bill Belichick. It's going to happen. And I'm not saying the Bengals necessarily hit a home run on their next one, but you can't let fear dictate what you're going to do with your team. That being said, it's a fine line there because in my post I wrote, Marvin Lewis has made this team respectable. I mean, he dragged them from where they were to get them where they're at. The problem with us fans is we don't understand what those changes are. Is it really that Marvin Lewis is such a great talent evaluator that he's been able to bring in people? Or is Duke Tobin really, pulling strings, and is he playing the GM role without the title? Like, if we got rid of Marvin, would we lose guys like Burfict and second chances for Adam Jones? Or would we keep that with, what's going on behind the scenes? And that's the scary part. So, on one hand, I think we're spoiled, and it stinks. Right now it stinks. It's going to stink until we win a playoff game. It's going to stink. But we're in the playoffs every year. And when you look at some of the national sites and they talk about the Bengals losing again, there are fans from teams that never sniffed the playoffs that are just, they would die to have Lewis. They would die to have a team that can get to the playoffs and be competitive every year. We have great seasons in Cincinnati. And, yeah, we complain about primetime games, but we're always in the conversation for the postseason, which is what you want. I mean, ultimately you want a Super Bowl, but you want a team that's going to keep you interested in the whole season because we've lived through the times where we weren't competitive after week 6. So it's tough. And I honestly think Marvin is going to have a soft spot in Cincinnati for as long as he wants, and it's getting to the point where something has to happen, and that I kind of touched on in my article. It may be Marvin's choice to leave. It may be that he realizes, based on his handcuffs, his abilities, whatever, he's done as much as he can in this town, and he needs to go work with a premier GM and really take that next step. And I think that's where we're at right now because we all know he's not going to get fired. That's not the way this ownership works. So it wouldn't shock me to see another year extension announced soon. It just doesn't get it. But I think if there's going to be a change, it's going to be on Marvin. And I honestly think after this loss, he's probably doing a little soul searching and thinking he's the second longest tenured coach in the NFL. He's done an incredible thing in Cincinnati. He could get another coaching job right now. You know what I mean? If he wanted to go coach with the Bears, I'm sure they'd have him. So I don't know that firing Marvin is necessarily the right thing. There's so many unknowns, but you shouldn't not do it for fear of who's going to replace him because the next best coach is out there.
AC, you were shaking your head as I was bringing up the subject earlier, and you looked like you had some agreement there with Mickey as well.
agreement and disagreement. I was probably shaking my head and nodding at other points, but Mickey's absolutely right on the fact of, hey, you can't be afraid to make a move. I think at some point the front office, and not Marvin Lewis, but the front office has to trust in what they've built in terms of talent and realize, hey, we've got the talent here, and if they are Dalton believers, hey, that's our quarterback. Let's get a guy that can basically demand perfection out of his players. And for all of the good things that Marvin Lewis has done, I don't see a head coach that demands perfection out of his team. And you see that in these big moments where they play tense and there's turnovers, there's penalties, there's poor play, and I think you can't be so afraid to revert back to the 90s by making a move that it keeps a guy there and you just kind of tread water and you stay in neutral. On the other hand, he's done some great things, and there's been a lot of positive momentum. You look at it, he's basically making and taking the Bengals to the playoffs every other year that he's been there, so on average. So, I mean, it's a tough spot. I think you guys probably know that I seeing what I saw again, even with the injuries that piled up, I would probably make some sort of move, and it also sends a message to the players and the rest of the team saying, hey, this guy was doing good, but he was not doing great at his job, and we only accept greatness, and that's what we come to expect, and we're going to get a guy in here that's going to get us to that next step. And I don't think they will. I think probably for the people that want Dalton gone as well, I think probably Lewis and Dalton, because of their contract situations, have at least through next year. I think Lewis has one more year on his contract, and Dalton's is pretty friendly through next year, and then that's when it starts to escalate. So I think you're going to probably see them next year, but I think I've seen enough. In big spots, big games, the team is just not prepared. They don't come out inspired, and I think it's time for a change, and I think it would send a pretty resounding message, especially from an owner who is so adverse to change and making big moves like that.
If I'm not mistaken, Marvin Lewis just completed his 11th season in Cincinnati. He has averaged, during those 11 years, Scott, 9 wins a season, which is above 500. You can't deny that. At the same time, 0-6 in the postseason. He's the head coach of the first team in NFL history to lose 4 consecutive wild card playoff games, Scott. So the question I pose to you, is it time for a change?
Yes. I mean, look, I've never been a Marvin Lewis supporter. I thought he should have been gone after 2010. And, since that time, he's gone to the playoffs 4 times, which, like the guy said, to win in the playoffs, you got to get to the playoffs. And he's doing that. He's got there 4 years straight. But at a certain point in time, getting to the playoffs is no longer the goal. And to Marvin Lewis's credit, he's raised the bar on himself. When he took over this job, the bar was to make them competitive. He's done that. He's gotten them to the playoffs. In fact, you could argue over the last, 6, 7 years, this is one of the most competitive franchises in the NFL. But, they haven't accomplished anything. And at a certain point, you say, has the team gone as far as he can take them? He does a good job in the regular season, but for some reason, when it comes to these big games or these win-or-go-home games, there's been one constant in all of these games, and it's Lewis. And every game we say the same thing. The team looks flat when they come out. They look ill-prepared, and, you just see it time and time again. I mean, yes, Sunday, it may not be that fair because of all of the injuries, but it looked like the same story. It was the same story. You had a Colts team that didn't have a first-drive touchdown the whole year. They were the only team in the NFL not to have a first-drive touchdown all year. They marched straight down the field and score on the Bengals. It's just like the bright lights come on, and his teams just shrink. And at some point in time, that's got to stick on the coach. Do I think he's going to get fired? Absolutely not. I just don't think that's the way the management team works. But should he? Give him credit for what he's done, but I think they need a new voice.
I agree. I think a new voice is needed. The problem is, I don't know if there is a coach out there that I'm absolutely in love with that I would say, yes, bring him to this town. I saw a lot of calls, a lot of people asking for Rex Ryan. Are you kidding me? Did you see what he did to Mark Sanchez? No, thank you. And we already have issues at quarterback. And they're not great issues, but I mean, I don't see Rex Ryan helping the cause with Andy Dalton. Will he be a good defensive coach? Sure. But I just, that's not a name that I'm necessarily in love with. Other than that, I don't know if to make a change for change's sake. I guess for me, I would want somebody who has a proven track record of winning in the postseason. And I know Rex Ryan did that a couple times, but over the last few years of his years there in New Jersey, it did not go well. So yeah, that's my take. I think that a change should be made. I think that the fact that here it is Wednesday night and nothing has been done as far as a change leads me to believe, which I also predicted on the postgame show, that Marvin Lewis would be back. I think if they wanted to make a change, they would have done it by now. So I know that each of you, you've let me know you want to add more to this, so I'll throw it to you first, Scott. What else did you want to add?
Yeah, Nick, one last point. Mickey made a good point of not letting fear run your franchise. And, I think that's a good point for when you're talking about replacing Marvin Lewis. You've got a stable coach that gets him to the playoffs. The fear is that you get someone else that won't get you there. The one fear that I do have is this management team seemingly has changed, but I don't trust them yet to hire a new coach. I mean, how many times did they get it wrong with the coaches leading up to Marvin Lewis? Can they get it right? And that's where my fear comes in is you do have a coach now that's winning, but do we trust Mike Brown to bring in the next good head coach to take him that next, the next step? So that's where my fear is.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to my additional point that I wanted to make, Scott, regarding Mike Brown. I don't know if you guys saw, it was a pretty high-quality article from Paul Doherty of the Enquirer. I think it was the day before the playoff game, and it was a lot of quotes from Mike Brown, and one of which revolved around how Mike Brown always remembered what it did to his father when he was fired from Cleveland. And I think that has stuck with Mike Brown throughout his tenure as owner. And that's why you saw Bob Bratkowski, who had some successful years with the team, and he ended up staying well longer than he probably should have. You're probably seeing, at least from my point of view, the same thing from Marvin Lewis. And I think that plays to the human side of Mike Brown. A lot of people think he's this greedy guy, sits in his ivory tower, and he's not the most social guy, but he's got a pretty big heart, especially for a select few people, players, coaches, whoever, that he really trusts and really likes, and he wants to keep them in his inner circle. And if they are doing some successful things for this team, he wants to hang on to them. And I think that's probably why you're seeing him so reluctant to make a sweeping change until he's absolutely and totally pressured, be it from the fans and the public or internally from other people. And that's why I don't know that we will see major changes, at least this offseason, maybe not even next.
Mickey, do you have anything you want to add to that? You were shaking your head.
I agree with most of that. I totally agree that Mike Brown's not the cheapskate that everyone paints him to be. His lack of acumen in certain things, it's easy to point that direction, but that's not it. What I just popped in my head on Anthony's last thought is, what if Hugh gets the Bills' head coaching job? Then what? I don't think it forces the Bengals to make a change at the head coach position, but I don't know. Then you have no continuity in your coaching staff. That's tough too. I don't know why that popped in there, but that's a pretty significant change that it's kind of out of our hands.
Yeah, I mean, we know he's interviewing with the Bills this week, and from what I've read, and all indications are, is that the Bills are pretty excited about the the opportunity of maybe having Hugh Jackson be their head coach. They saw what he did in Oakland for the short time that he was there. We've seen what Oakland has been since he left, and then we also saw what he did in his first year with an offense which, by the way, has not been 100% healthy at all this year. He didn't have any of his weapons for the entire season. Can you imagine what Hugh could have done had Marvin Jones been healthy, had Tyler Eifert been healthy, and even in a healthy A.J. Green for a whole year? Imagine what he could have done with this offense. And the fact that this team still went out and won 10 games and were a 3-minute drive away from possibly being division champions, that's pretty remarkable in itself. So I think that bodes well for Hugh Jackson. I guess if you're going to make a change, for me personally, I want them to go find the next offensive guru. And the reason for that is they struggle really badly in selling out the stadium, right? It seems like every week are they going to sell out? Why not find the next offensive coach who is brilliant and is entertaining and puts butts in the seats?
I think that is a terrible way to think about it. And when was the last Bengals blackout, Nick?
2012.
Been a while.
Yeah, but
And
it's
now,
something that's brought up every week, though. You can't.
Right, but now I can't deny that. Ticketmaster does the tickets. You can go on there before the games and see you can pick out your exact seat, right? So 2 times this season when we've had the, oh no, I don't know if we're going to be able to sell out, I've gone on there and done the math, and they were already at the number where they could have done a sellout. So that's one thing that infuriates me. There's pressure on the Bengals ticket office to sell tickets, and I think sometimes they release that there may be a blackout to the media to sell extra tickets.
Right.
And that puts the national media on point, saying, "Oh, they're not good fans." So they're selling, they're using tactics to sell tickets on the backs of their fans, and I don't like it. And now that we have that data, like if they do it next year, I'm going to blow it up. Because it's crap. That's not how you should sell your tickets. So the threat of a blackout thing kind of pisses me off because I think there's a lot more media hype there than is actual. Because with all these threats, we've always made it. You haven't heard those stories of the big corporate buyout like we used to, right? When Chad Johnson was pressuring Kroger and Meyer or whatever. That doesn't happen now. So that's I don't know. I wouldn't use that argument because I think it's weak and it's an attempt for the ticket office to sell tickets.
Well, how about the idea of having an offensive guru who brings in an entertaining style of offense to this team?
I'd be for it, but it depends on what you mean by entertaining. If we go into the spread and draft a quarterback, I just blanked, but like the kid with the Jets right now, someone that obviously doesn't fit any NFL system, but will be a wildcat offense for a few weeks. That'd be dumb. I'd prefer to have a top quarterback and a drop back passer and a team, a guy that's going to be your quarterback for 15 years. But I don't know. Winning sells tickets too. So if we had the greatest defense on the planet, that would sell just as many tickets as a fancy offense, I think.
Nick, I do agree with you, and Mickey, I'm going to disagree with you on the winning sells tickets, and I feel like we've seen that, in the past four years with this team is that, unfortunately, if you win but you don't advance, I think the fans stale a bit. With this current, I think that's going to be the challenge the Bengals have selling tickets next year is, if you're selling this essentially the same team that's gone, the playoffs 4 straight times and lost and looked bad doing so, and you have the same quarterback coming back, the same head coach coming back, I think that's a hard sell to the fans because at this point, I don't think a lot of fans are buying into this team until they win in the playoffs. It's like the regular season right now means 0 to the fans because they just keep seeing it as fine. We'll get to the playoffs, we'll lose, and they just don't buy in. So, I'm not saying you should run your franchise and fire a coach because of that, but I think that is going to be a challenge that they're really going to face this year is how do we sell this team it's essentially the same to our fans again.
Yeah, it's not a bad point. And Nick, there's an interesting dichotomy to what you're saying with, the next great offensive mind and, bringing them in and what have you. I mean, I think you're more talking maybe offensive coordinator, maybe replace Hugh Jackson. I don't know if you're potentially talking about replacing Marvin Lewis with more of an offensive-minded coach, but this goes back to the argument of what we were talking about earlier, saying, who's out there? What big name is out there? And you look at some of the hires that have been made in the past, and Sean Payton immediately springs to mind. He was kind of a hot name at the time, but I don't think he was a household name per se. And he went in to New Orleans, changed the culture there, and yeah, they've struggled the past couple of years, but he won a Super Bowl. He absolutely changed the culture there when that city needed, basically a borderline savior of something and really needed to lean on their football team. And he was the offensive genius, and granted, he had a very smart quarterback, but that quarterback has some shortcomings, mostly physical, of his own. And even though Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame quarterback, Sean Payton was able to utilize his strengths, create a system that worked. And I think Andy Dalton, I think we can all agree, has far more shortcomings than Drew Brees. But if you have more of a creative mind and more of an inspirational figurehead in the franchise, I think you could see some improvements in some areas that have been lacking over the past couple of years.
Well, I mean, look, it's going to be a debate we'll have for weeks to come, I'm sure, here in the 2015 offseason. Love to get your thoughts, Bengal fans. Do you want to keep the current coaching staff? And if so, who would you, if you want to get rid of the coaching staff, who would you like to see here at Paul Brown Stadium? Give us a ring, 404-946-3397. Let's open up those phone lines. And let's go to area code 703. Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is Richard Rolson.
Hey, Richard, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a really interesting show to listen to today. And I kind of wanted to add on to, I wanted to get your guys' take. I asked this question after the game on Sunday. Do they think that Andy Dalton and Hugh Jackson can work? Because Hugh Jackson definitely has a style, and Andy Dalton doesn't quite fit that style, in my opinion, because of his lack of accurate deep throw. I mean, he can throw the ball long, but it just doesn't seem to have the accuracy that other quarterbacks have. And in my opinion, Dalton needs this year regressed. He doesn't seem to progress through his receivers as well, and so we see him kind of fixated on, one or two targets, which leads him to having a really quick release. He's like the fastest release, but I'm wondering if that's a good thing, or was that just because he was told, look at A.J. Green and then look at a dump off, and that was it. And so I kind of want to get you guys' take. Can Dalton and Jackson work together? I mean, they both, have certain talents, and then would it make sense to bring in a new quarterback's coach that maybe could help Dalton get back some of his read progression?
AC, you're shaking your head. You want to start off?
Yeah, sure, if you don't mind. We talked about this on the web gating special on Saturday. I brought up the fact that I also noticed that Andy Dalton this year specifically has failed to go through numerous reads, at least from what I've seen on tape. I see him look at one target, maybe two, and then once he senses a little bit of pressure, or if that player's not open, he kind of rolls out, then maybe dumps one off to the running back or throws it away. Now, there are positives to that. You throw away, you get to play another down potentially, or you punt instead of throwing a critical interception, and you avoid sacks. But I was thinking about this today, and I'm glad that this call came through. There have been, and I think you saw a couple from Andrew Luck this Sunday, where he sits in the pocket, he sits there, he goes through his reads, and he's willing to make a throw and take a hit. And that's a quality in a quarterback that you need. And there have been limited amount of times that Andy Dalton has done that, but I see more of a guy that, look for your first one or two receivers, maybe roll out and try and do something either with his legs, dump it off to one of the running backs or what have you. And sometimes you need, especially in the playoffs, you need a guy who can sit back there, go through the reads, let things kind of develop, find the open guy, throw the ball, and be willing to take a hit. And sometimes that does result in sacks, sometimes that does result in errant throws, but a lot of times it results in big plays. And I think you saw that out of Andrew Luck on Sunday specifically.
Does that answer your question, Richard?
That does. But do you think that Hugh Jackson can design an offense that can take, Andy Dalton's strengths and cover up some of his weaknesses? I mean, I kind of feel that I've been reading that, the team has no trust in Dalton, and I'm hoping that's not the case because he does have some strengths out there. I think, any great quarterback, had some weaknesses, but, there are a few that they were amazing, Aaron Rodgers, Luck, and all that. But a lot of guys that we consider great quarterbacks, they had their weaknesses. It's just they were in the right system to fit their talents, guys like Joe Montana and that. And so I'm just wondering, do you think that can Hugh Jackson design it with his style of play, or are we like one more year of Dalton and then his contract that kind of gives the Bengals an out and we're going a new direction? And with that, I'll let you guys talk. Thanks for the show. Look forward to the off-season, hearing your guys' takes.
Hey, appreciate the call, Richard. Who day? Mickey, I know you wanted to respond to that.
First of all, that's some great questions from Richard. Like, those are pretty solid. We're getting into this again, and this may not be popular, but I think part of what Anthony touched on and what we saw was Hugh Jackson's offense. I think Andy Dalton was better at standing in the pocket. Sure, there was mistakes, there was some inaccuracy in the past than he was this year. I honestly think Hugh Jackson's a run the ball, quick reads, get that ball out. Andy Dalton is coachable, and I honestly think that, and I think this year he was coached to make those reads. And in the past, when he had his full stable, when he had, think about it, Hugh Jackson's offense probably would have been a different look had Eifert and Marvin Jones been out there. You got 4 or 5 guys there that are going to get separation, and those first reads are going to be open. And then if not, you have Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill, to take the heat off. Like that offense would have been intense, yet they continue to press that offense with guys like Brandon Tate. Mohamed Sanu kind of disappeared. A.J. Green played the way he plays. Sometimes he was all out. Sometimes it seemed like he took plays off. I think that quick read, fire the ball is part of Hugh Jackson's offense. Because honestly, if Andy Dalton can't scan the field and can't go through every progression, he's not an NFL quarterback, and I just don't think we've seen differences in the past. We've seen him look through. We've seen some incredible plays where he's getting hit and he, looks down. Giovanni Bernard's not even the read, but he pitches the ball to him, and those are the kind of plays that Anthony's talking about, and they were successful. They turned out. I honestly think Hugh Jackson's offense is quick read. If it's not there, fire it away, get back to the line, let's run the next play. That may not play in it to Dalton's strengths when he doesn't have the weapons loaded, when people are hurt. What saddens me is that it seems like we didn't adjust. It seems like we couldn't handle, and I'm going to say this, this kind of ties it back into what we talked about before, Nick, with Marvin Lewis. I'm going to hold him responsible because he's, the CEO there. We have these talents that show up in the middle of the year like Hewitt or Jeremy Hill. Why in the heck is Jeremy Hill not our starting running back at the beginning of the season? Did he all of a sudden get better in Week 8? No. There's no way. He was the same player. Drake Kirkpatrick finished the season pretty strong. Is he just now getting it, or did he not get his chance to play until now? How is it we take 2 first-round corners back-to-back, yet they can't see the field? Is it because we're too loyal to our aging veterans and we're not giving the young guys a chance? These are kind of the things I bring up when it's all, well, if Dalton did this, if Dalton did this, if Dalton did this. There's failures everywhere on this team, and I think those are some of the things that we're failing at. I've seen people talk about we need to draft for the secondary, and I'm like, our last 2 drafts were secondary focused. These guys can't get on the field, yet when they do, yes, they're going to take their lumps, but so did Patrick Peterson. Like, these guys seem like great players. So I don't know. Like, I think that the Andy Dalton quick read was by design, and I think it just doesn't work definitely didn't work for the personnel we had in the back half of the season, and it probably doesn't work for Dalton.
Well, I mean, whoever is the coordinator, if Hugh Jackson moving forward becomes the head coach in Buffalo or elsewhere, and whether or not Hugh Jackson returns, something's got to be done regarding adjustments. And you look at the halftime adjustments that this team either does or does not make, Scott Mantel, basically it comes out to 0 points in the last 2 second halves in the postseason. None. Zip zilch, which isn't good. But your thoughts on Hugh Jackson and Dalton, and can they coexist?
Well, to your first point regarding the adjustments, yeah, in fact, I wrote about that just today. That's another reason why I've soured on Marvin. Is you take a look at halftime adjustments, and with him at the helm, it's just non-existent. In the playoffs, in the 6 playoff games, the Bengals have been outscored just 64-61 in the first half. So every game they've been right there in the first half. Second half they've been outscored 84-13. In 4 of those 6 games they've been shut out in the second half. And we saw it on Sunday. Maybe they shouldn't have been in the game at halftime, but they were, and they just came out and got blown away in the second half. So, just to go back to the whole should Marvin stay, but as far as Dalton and Hugo. Yeah, I think they can coexist, and I'd like to dispel the myth about Dalton and his consistency. It doesn't hold water. Dalton was 12th in the NFL this year in completion percentage, like 64.2%, and that was without. I mean, think about it. That was without his number 2 receiver all year. That was without his pass catching tight end all year. There were times, 3 or 4 games, where his receiving crew was Mohamed Sanu, Brandon Tate, and Greg Little. Mohamed Sanu led the NFL in drop passes. Greg Little would have if he was given the chance. So, that 64.2% takes into account all of those drop passes as well. So, I hear this all the time that Dalton's not consistent, and that's not true.
Yeah, and props to Mickey. He brought up a lot of good points there. I think part of what he said is true, where some of the things that Hugh Jackson likes to do maybe doesn't play to Dalton's strengths, but I do think that what the original plan from the get-go in his hire also revolved around play action. And I think, and I mentioned this on Saturday's show as well, where you run the ball, you set up play action, and that's where a guy like Tyler Eifert, a deep threat like Marvin Jones, and then your Pro Bowl receiver A.J. Green really come in handy. And even though a lot of the passing schemes we saw were kind of quick hitters, I do think that play action was probably a staple that Hugh Jackson wanted to establish. But early on, you saw some ineffectiveness from Giovanni Bernard. You had some injuries that hit you all the way through the season, and that didn't really develop. But another point that Mickey brought up is, and it plays into should Marvin be back and his coaching prowess and all of that. You look at some of these young, talented guys, and there are certain players that Marvin really trusts as rookies. There's the Leon Halls, there's all kinds of examples, but there's other guys too, and you look at them, the rookie corners, Drake Kirkpatrick when he was a rookie, Darqueze Dennard when he was a rookie, Carlos Dunlap, who was a productive player when he finally got time as a rookie, Geno Atkins, who was productive as a rookie. You look at some of these guys and you go, why weren't these guys in the lineup in the first place? Were you just trying to send a message saying, hey, I'm not seeing the effort in practice, I'm not seeing the attitude I want to see, so even though you may be talented than this guy, we're still going to sit you on the bench? But that's a detriment to the team. And Mickey brought up a little side point in our little message thing here about Pac-Man Jones. For about a year, I've been saying that, there's always a fear with teams and with coaches about, we don't want injuries to keep players on returns. Well, you've seen Reggie Bush return kicks throughout the majority of his career, and he's been a big part of all of the offenses that he's been on. And you see other guys, Devin Hester, all of these guys that still play roles on offense, on defense, things like that, but they rely on those guys on special teams and certain things like that because they know that that's a game changer at a specific position, and you can't play afraid to get a guy injured. Yes, there's a risk there, but if that's going to help your team, you have to make that move, and you have to put your best players out on the field at all times, and I don't think Marvin Lewis does that with his rookies or maybe some guys that he relies heavily on offense or defense to not play roles on special teams or what have you.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great question, and I appreciate Richard for bringing that up about Dalton and Hugh Jackson and whether or not they can coexist. Who knows? Maybe you never know. Maybe Andy Dalton has another offensive coordinator here in 2015. We shall see. Let's go back to the jungle line. Appreciate you holding on, John from Kentucky. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing fine, Nick. Hello, everybody. Pretty chilly out tonight here in Kentucky, but anyway, one point I wanted to make. I noticed that the Indianapolis Colts, their last game of the season, they played the Tennessee Titans. Cincinnati, however, actually they got into a fight with the Pittsburgh Steelers and ended up getting some people hurt. And fortunately, they were able to hurt somebody that plays for Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh didn't do so well against the Baltimore Ravens. And I just want to make this point. You know, Cincinnati, they always do lousy the first round of the playoffs, but it tends to be where the last game of the regular season, they just got into a war with either Pittsburgh or Baltimore, it seems. Whereas a lot of these teams they're playing didn't exactly go through a real bad game at the end of the season. Now, I'm not here to make excuses for Cincinnati. And that's another thing, too. There are not a lot of coaches out here that would love Marvin's job because they're not really interested in playing Pittsburgh and Baltimore every year. You know, Bill Belichick coached the Cleveland Browns, and he had 3 losing seasons. So his record in the AFC North is not all that. Now, I'm not saying I want to see Marvin here for another 10 years. I get sick and tired of talking about the guy year after year, to be honest. But at the same time, he's only under a 1-year contract this time. So the Bengals are pretty much just going year by year with him. So I think they're waiting for the first real bad year that he has, and I don't think they'll extend him, and he will be gone. But they're not going to fire him under contract. Nobody draws unemployment on Mike Brown. So anyway, as far as what went right this season, I loved that Cleveland game, you know, what we did to Johnny Manziel. And I do love the fact that we annihilated Denver more or less on Monday Night Football. At least they got a big primetime win. So the Bengals really did accomplish something this season that they didn't last season. And I keep saying it and saying it and saying it until I see Andy Dalton with a Gronkowski or a Heath Miller. I'm not really going to come down on him. I mean, who's Greg Little, for crying out loud? Rex Burkhead. What is this guy supposed to do? Work miracles? He needs some big, mean, tough tight ends because Dalton loves that short, quick pass, which is ideal for a tight end. So we need a tight end that can play without getting hurt all year. We need somebody in there that's pretty tough. That's all I can say.
Well said, John. Hey, appreciate the call. Thanks for holding.
All right. Take care.
Who Dey? That's John from Kentucky. He brings up some good points, especially the scheduling aspect. And I remember, what was it, 2 years ago? Week 16, they go to Pittsburgh, and a slugger, they just a slobber knocker against the Steelers, a 13-10 game, and then they ended the year hosting the Ravens. So, I mean, it's not like they do have a brutal, and for whatever reason the NFL wants to schedule these division games at the end of the year. I get that. I understand that. I mean, that's part of the problem. You're playing in, and let's not sugarcoat it, this is the toughest division in football. I don't care about the NFC West. The AFC North is by far, hands down, the toughest division in football, which also you have to give Marvin Lewis the credit that he deserves, and the fact that he is playing in this tough division, and he is still averaging 9 wins a season, and he has 3 division titles, if I'm not mistaken. I'm at a loss for words because John brings up a great point.
Yeah, it's a notch in his belt and on his resume, and I'm sure the other guys have some thoughts on that too. I want to hear theirs, but I think also probably what's valued within the Bengals organization with Marvin Lewis is his familiarity with this division. He was a linebackers coach at Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. He was the defensive coordinator and won a Super Bowl with Baltimore, so he knows what it takes to win in this division. And to his credit, like you said, Nick, he's won the division 3 times and has been to the postseason 6 times. So he's getting it done in the regular season. There's no doubt there. It's just what we keep saying, the playoff games, the primetime games, and the lack of preparedness from this team under Marvin Lewis in those type of situations. To John's point about the tight ends, I think that the Bengals are probably going to need to really address that position this offseason. There's some reports about some coaches being displeased about Jermaine Gresham. I think our friend Paul Denner from the Inquirer kind of said some things about that this week. Who knows how accurate that is? I tend to believe Denner because he's in that locker room and he talks to people, so there's probably some validity there. You have Tyler Eifert coming off a major injury. You have Alex Smith coming off a major injury and towards the end of his career, and you got Kevin Brock and Ryan Hewitt, who is kind of the fullback as well. But that's a position I think the Bengals are probably going to need to invest in going forward, as John said.
All right. Good stuff. I see Mickey shaking his head in agreement. Yeah, I mean, I think the Gresham, we all know, the fan base, has not really been on board with him either. And so I think we probably saw the last of him in a Cincinnati Bengals uniform. You never know. But I know that they are big fans of what Ryan Hewitt offered late in the year. Really good blocking tight end. And, you know, he holds on to the football. He's got sure hands, which is what you want out of your tight end when you get the ball, which you couldn't say that about Jermaine Gresham. So, yeah. I wanted to, this week, when we ran out of time, I wanted to break down the individual position groups and give a letter grade from the coaches, and not just the coaches but the players. But we'll put that off to next week because I think it will require some time to discuss. And, frankly, we just ran out of time this week. And since we don't have any bold predictions this week, I guess we could do bold predictions. But I wanted to play Playoff Survivor with my co-hosts here. You guys want to do that? You want to play Playoff Survivor for the rest of the year? You don't have a choice. We're doing it.
Sure.
Okay. So you have to pick. You know how Survivor works. You pick one team, and if they win, you move on. And you cannot. We'll make it a rule since we only have so many teams left, and we only got a couple more weeks left. You can't pick the same team more than once until the Super Bowl if they make it to the Super Bowl. Sound good? All right. So you have to pick one team out of the 8. I'll start with you, Mickey Menser. Who are you going to pick?
This is tough, and I'm not a big fan of these, so I'm going ballsy out the gate. So I'm flipping a coin between either Carolina or Baltimore. And I'm going to go Baltimore.
That's a solid choice. I'm telling you, they look like a team on a mission. The way they played in Pittsburgh last week, I would not be shocked if they won the Super Bowl, honestly. With the way Joe Flacco's been playing, that guy, man, I can't believe I'm saying this, I wish we had a quarterback like Joe Flacco in the playoffs. That guy is out of his mind in the postseason. So that's a good pick, Mickey. I actually think they go into Foxborough and win. AC, how about you? Give us your team for Playoff Survivor.
It's painful to pick Baltimore, but you know they can look so pedestrian in the regular season, and then when they get to the postseason, it's a completely different story. It's really strange, and John Harbaugh is a heck of a coach. They're in there. I think I'm just going to go Green Bay. I think Aaron Rodgers is playing unbelievable football. I think they're hosting Dallas next week, and though Dallas is undefeated on the road, I think the postseason, terrible weather. Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau, I think that's just a different thing, and then it'll probably come down to Green Bay and Seattle. I think I'm gonna stick with Green Bay. They're playing very good football this year.
All right, so he's picking Green Bay for this week. By the way, you mentioned Dallas undefeated on the road this year. Well, Green Bay undefeated at home this year, and it's the last time Dallas has played Green Bay in the postseason at Lambeau since the Ice Bowl. Isn't that remarkable? To even think about that, that's pretty cool. So Mickey's going with Baltimore. AC's going with Green Bay. How about you, Scott? Who are you picking this week for Playoff Survivor?
Well, we're all going to take different teams. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. This is not sour grapes. This is simply the Indy team I saw on Sunday was not impressive. I was not one bit impressed. I don't think that offensive line's going to hold up against Denver's defense. Um, I think the Denver offense will be able to spread them out, unlike the Bengals. And so I like Peyton Manning and the Broncos in the battle of the horses.
That's a solid choice. I think Seattle. I think they're going to have it's going to be a close game with Carolina. Both defenses are playing really well, so I'm going to stay away from that game. I'll say I'm going to also go with Denver as well for my playoff survivor pick. So yeah, if you want to take part in our fun little playoff survivor, you can also send us your teams via Twitter. I'm at Nick Zerlin. You can also email me at insidethejungle@spnt.tv. Kind of miss not having bold predictions, but we'll save them for next year. In the meantime, let's do some shout-outs, shall we?
Shout-outs!
Why don't you start us off, Mickey Menzer?
Shouting out two people. I may have shouted these people out before, but one guy, Alex, who's at Sports Art by Alex, has been talking with me a little bit on Twitter, and also at Ohio Juke Joint. I think they are. I think I've shouted them before, but two people I wanted to shout out this week.
Solid choices. Well done. How about you, AC?
Since Mickey didn't shout this one out, I'm gonna go Jelaine. I believe it's Rogers. Is that the last name, Mickey? Yeah. Okay. She's with the NFLPA, and she helped set us up with credentials. And big props to Mickey, not only for good points tonight. Nick and Scott, you had great points tonight as well. But Mickey had great points tonight, and he set up credentials for myself, himself, and Cody Toomey, who is also in the chat room and does some things for Cincy Jungle. We're going to the NFLPA Bowl next week, checking out some practices and the game. It's a scouting event for the draft. So props to Mickey, props to Jelaine for helping set all of that up.
Good choice. Yeah, we're gonna be able to do a show next week with you two?
Not sure.
Maybe you guys could be in the same bedroom. That might be a little weird, but
that's creepy.
The different show.
Not as creepy as this ugly playoff beard, that's for sure. We'll figure something out for next week, though. Hopefully, you're just pretty bushy too, Mick. Scott, how about you? Give me some shout outs.
Yeah, Mickey, that beard is getting a little bit creepy. I'm gonna give a general shout out to all the Inside the Jungle listeners. Nick, you sent out the stats today of the amount of downloads we've had over this year, and it's amazing the amount of people that we have listening to the show and downloading the show. So thanks to everyone for tuning in and for downloading the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't echo those sentiments enough. The support for the show has been tremendous this year, whether it's via the download, the iTunes reviews, the Patreon contributions. It's been remarkable. 2014 was incredible for this podcast, and that's all because of you. So thank you for downloading the show, and we're here for you. I mean, we do this show because we love the Bengals. We don't get this kind of coverage anywhere else, and it's pretty cool. And I agree. Good call there, Scott. I'm going to give a shout-out this week to Robert Van Prague. He's the first person to buy an Inside the Jungle T-shirt. So congratulations. He's our shout-out this week. Robert Van Prague. He's a fan in New Jersey. So thank you, Robert, for purchasing an Inside the Jungle T-shirt. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, that's going to do it. We've reached an hour that quickly. Well done, guys. Final thoughts, Anthony Cosenza, as we wrap up episode 179?
I feel like I bogarted the microphone in the responses tonight, so I apologize if I did that. Didn't mean to hog anything, but I'm excited for next week where I'm going to be hanging with Mickey and Cody. Wish you guys were both there, and hopefully we can provide some good coverage. It's a bummer that the Bengals season ended, but we're going to have some other stuff for the site and obviously the podcast going as well, so that's going to be awesome. And Nick, I know it's cheesy, and we did it before Christmas and probably around Thanksgiving as well, but thank you for what you do for this podcast. It's a lot of fun, and as you mentioned, I think we're reaching a broad audience, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the show. You guys make the show. You weren't bogarting the microphone at all, and you provide excellent insight each and every week, AC. So thank you very much for joining us, Mickey Menzer. It's been a couple weeks. Good seeing you, man. Hope you had a good New Year, a good holiday. Final thoughts?
Sure did. My final thoughts looking ahead, Nick. I want a big win on Monday. I think that will set off my off season right. So that's my next focus.
Well, best of luck to your Buckeyes.
Thanks, man.
Be a good game.
Suck guys from you, right?
No. I'm not gonna be mean. I'm supporting my co-host.
I still remember your tweet from earlier in the year.
Yeah, I'm eating crow on that one. I think I was something about it after Big Ten, and yeah, they did well this postseason.
You actually said nice loss, suck guys.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds like me. Well, best of luck to your Buckeyes. I hope they pull it out on Monday night, and safe travels next week too.
Thanks, man.
Scotty B. Final thoughts as we wrap up.
Well, disappointing loss to end the season again, but I'm pretty excited. Maybe this is being a Bengals fan through the 90s, but I have an extreme soft spot for the NFL draft. Even with playoff teams, I think the NFL draft is still my favorite time of the season. I refer to it as NFL Christmas. So I'm looking forward to the draft process starting, and can't wait to get some exciting stuff up on the site about the draft.
The draft will be here before you know it. Coming up in May in Chicago. And I think we will have to work out the details, but I would like to do some kind of meetup / party during draft weekend down in the Natty, which sucks for you, AC, because you live out on the left coast. But maybe we could figure something out and get you out here.
Nick, we should take it to the doorstep of the draft in Chicago.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it'd be cool if we could do a meetup and actually go to the draft, but I don't know how easy it is to get tickets to the draft or whatever. Either way, we got to do something, because I know there are fans of not just the podcast but the website who are begging for a meetup of some kind, and we should do that. We should work on that for draft weekend. I think it'd be a lot of fun. If it's in Cincinnati, if it's in Chicago, I think it'll be cool. It'll be good to get out and meet the people. Hopefully we'll be able to put that together. That's my final thoughts as we wrap up episode 179. Again, thank you to everybody who tuned in live here at CincyJungle.com. We always record the show Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern here at CincyJungle.com, so don't miss that. If you do miss the show, we provide on-demand content, on-demand audio, which you could subscribe to whether you have an iPhone, an Android phone, using the podcast app if you're on iOS. There's Pocket Casts for Android. There's Stitcher Smart Radio. There are a lot of ways to get this show, and so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of Inside the Jungle. Also, I am putting together a survey for the show. I want to get your thoughts and let us know how we can improve this podcast, and you can have a chance to win a free Inside the Jungle t-shirt just by going to spnt.tv/survey. Let us know how you consume the show, and I appreciate the feedback. It will help in making this show much, much better. Again, that website and that survey address is spnt.tv/survey. All right, enough chatter for me. It's time to get out of here. Thanks again for tuning in. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, make sure you log on to spnt.tv. And throughout the playoffs, make sure you check out CincyJungle.com. Everybody's killing it over there. A lot of visits. We appreciate everybody and everybody at Cincy Jungle. Bracy, Mickey, I'm Scott. I'm Nick. He's Scott. Thanks for joining us. Episode 179. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a good weekend, everybody. Hooray! I do have to work tonight. I did not go to work last night. I was not feeling well.
Are you feeling better today?
That beard going on?
Yeah, I got to go to work. What's up, Scott?
Said, is that why you got the beard going on?
I've been lazy. Can you see the white?
You see Doc in the chat room?
No, what did he say?
How to improve the podcast. www.dollarshaveclub.com.
I've got my 14-year-old scruff going on. Dude. I don't know if anybody can see that, but
Well, at dinner tonight, I asked my kids, I'm like, should I shave my beard? And my daughter was like, yes. And my son was like, yes, you should shave. My wife was like, I kind of like it.
yeah, your kids were cute last week, Nick. They were funny, dude.
They went downstairs and told my wife, like, I was on Dad's show.
Mickey, when are you coming in next week?
Thursday morning.
Okay. You got stuff set up, place to stay, car, all the whole deal?
Yeah. Her
Okay.
cousin.
Oh yeah, that's right. Malibu? Is that where he lives?
He lives in L.A. We went to Malibu for the day last year.
All right. Well, like I said, I don't know if you got my email, man. You're coming in at a good time. It's going to be 60s, 70s here, dude.
Little less than last year, but I'll still take it right now.
Weren't there fires going on last year? At one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Remember the ashes?
Mm-hmm.
It's 4 here right now.
I know, isn't that crazy?
It's 4?
Yeah.
It's
4.
It might be colder than that in my fucking basement right now. It's so. I almost wore running gloves to do the show tonight. It's so damn cold down here.
Oh, it's 6 here, Mickey.
Oh, it's so warm up there.
I know. How is it warmer? That's kind of weird.
It's brutal outside right now.
So, hey, Mick, what do you?
Low tonight, -4.
Mickey, what do you think is going to happen? Because she said something about we have one parking pass, or what? Do you think that's going to change, or do we need to kind of wait and see how Wednesday and Thursday go first?
So the practices, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It'll change. We could have got more. We could have got more last year, but we didn't need it for the game.
Right. I mean,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, we can carpool if we need. I was just curious.
Yeah.
You bringing the kids out?
Nope.
Cool. Well, thanks again for setting it up.
Yeah, no problem.
Look who decided to join us tonight. It's Fatal Content on the morning.
There he is.
Yo, what's up, man? You know I couldn't forget about you guys, man. I had some stuff going on, but I had to check in somehow, even if it's late.
How's it going, man?
Were you able to watch us from the strip club, Fatal?
I should have, man. I think that's why we lost, man.
You want to see that?
No.
No,
What is that?
It shows a number 4 on my Weather Channel app.
Oh, that's great. What's the temperature down in South Beach, Fatal?
With a low tonight of -5.
Then I think.
Man.
What was it, Fatal?
I think it's 77.
Yeah.
Mickey, my phone says it feels like -11.
Yeah, mine says that too.
I got to tell you, I went, I think I mentioned this on the other show, I went snowboarding for a couple days up a little bit north from where I live, and on New Year's Eve, it was 8, wind chill was 0 in the day. And I got to tell you, that was frigid. I don't know how you guys do that. I'm a wuss, though, when it comes to cold, so...
Yeah, I think I shortchanged this, man. It's 72, man. 72. How you guys holding up after the loss, man?
I was gonna ask you.
I'm actually I'm not as bummed as I should be because
you're used to it.
No, it's not that I'm used to it. Well, that's one thing. We're kind of conditioned to lose, but another thing is just it's just the mass amounts of bodies that we were missing. So I know we should have.
Yeah.
I wish we would have played a little bit better, but despite the circumstances, what else can you expect? I mean, as soon as I heard that we were missing all those people, I mean, I was like, oh, it's really unrealistic to think that you're going to beat that team without those people, especially with Dalton's struggles.
I saw somebody the other day on Facebook blaming Dalton for the loss to the Colts because he's the one who got A.J. Green hurt against the Steelers. And if I'm not mistaken, Green got himself hurt because he couldn't hold on to the ball.
Yeah, but I mean, if Dalton would have secured that better in his stomach, wrapped his hands around it better, then Green wouldn't have fumbled.
Yeah.
Mickey, I was like 20 rows behind the Bengals bench on Sunday. Just seeing Jermaine Gresham smile on the sideline was pissing me off all game.
He gone. He is gone. Good as gone.
I know that's your guy, but still.
It's not my guy. It's just not. He's another one. He's not as bad as everyone made it out to be. He's got some of the greatest tight end numbers in our history.
He's a bum.
He made some boneheaded mistakes, but against the Steelers, he was also the only one still trying.
Speaking on that position, man, I think it's about time. I'm gonna keep saying this every week. I'm gonna speak it into existence, man. We need to draft my guy from Miami, man. We need to draft Clive Walford, man. He needs to replace Gresham.
We'll be on the lookout.
I don't know how far up my guy's gonna shoot either. We have a left tackle that's coming out too that I thought was gonna be underrated in Eric Flowers. I thought maybe he can go second, third round, but it depends on the combine. He might tear the combine up and move up, but I think he's another guy we need to look at that can be a cheap bang for your buck in the later rounds, but it depends on how he does at the combine. He's definitely probably going to shoot up, but he's another one to look for.
You want to hear something bold? The Bengals trade up for Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Nick, if they
hell no, that ain't happening.
Nick, if they do that, I will ride my bike up to Toledo just to punch you in the balls and ride back.
Is Nick O'Leary a senior?
Yeah, he's coming out too. They got a good little. He's another one I wouldn't mind.
I would love to get him.
Yeah, they have him. In some places pegged as the number 1 tight end.
I would get him if they could.
He's well-rounded. He's good.
I'd like to see him take a defensive tackle. I soured on our tackles this year, and especially with Atkins looking the way he did, I'd like to see another tackle.
That's another thing. We didn't even get into the comments that Paul Gunther made about Atkins.
Yeah. I'd love to see a smaller, quicker, hybrid linebacker defensive end guy, like a Doomerville or something like that, where you can have a guy kind of play linebacker and then third down put his hand in the dirt and rush, or you can kind of sneak blitz him. I think it's really funny because Marvin Lewis used to thrive on that stuff in Baltimore, and he has yet to find a guy like that in Cincinnati. He's tried a couple times, but none of them worked out, and I'm surprised they haven't really tried every year to find a guy like that. But I'd like to see him.
A bunch of them out there this year.
Yeah, and you would think with like the size of the Bengals' defensive line, Dunlap's huge. It's all strength guys, and you would think mixing in a shorter, quicker guy that kind of is more of a finesse speed guy would be a good little mix with all those guys, but I don't know.
Wasn't it here on Cincy Jungle that I think it was here I read that they had us taking the guy from Kentucky, Dupree or whatever his name was?
Yeah, Dupree.
I don't know if that was what you guys thought on that one.
I mean, I haven't looked at all these guys that much, but from what I've read about the guy, he apparently is a pretty good dude and a pretty freakish athlete.
But do you guys advocate them moving up and taking a receiver? Are you guys of the like mind thinking that way, that they should try to get a crazy playmaker, or should they just stick to defense or where they're at?
Go get a receiver. They need somebody to help AJ.
I'd love a guy that is a good receiver that can kick return too. Replace Tate.
Well, you can get him as a kick returner, and he won't be played as a kick returner because he might get hurt.
Correct. He's too valuable.
Yeah.
You guys not sold on Jones?
Yeah,
I'm not sold on Jones because he can't stay healthy.
Well, if you do that, that's fine. If you do that, then Newman's probably going to retire or not re-sign because his contract's up. Leon Hall played awful this year, I thought. for the most part. And then you got a guy coming into a second year in Denard and Dre. I'd like to see him start those guys, just see what they got. And then you kind of maybe keep Leon for a slot guy, and you kind of have Jones as your kick returner / fourth corner, and then maybe you draft another guy. But if you go that route, I wouldn't be opposed because he had a great year doing it. But you're probably either way, you're going to need to draft a guy for either position, I would think.
I'd like to see them get Tyler Lockett. Cody just mentioned that in the chat room. Guy was a stud at K-State.
I liked Mickey's guy from Ohio State, watching him track down the deep balls. With Devin Smith, Mickey?
Devin Smith, yeah. I mean, he'll be good. I think he'll have a big game on Monday.
I mean, he's probably someone that would be around like second, third round.
Is that an Ohio State guy, Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Lockett the kid? Is Lockett the kid that was the son of one of the NFL receivers? Lockett? Is that? Am I hearing? Is that the same guy?
I don't know. I just know he plays for K-State.
Okay. Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
The Bengals had a guy last name Lockett on their practice squad. Was it this year or last year? Am I making that up?
I don't know.
Don't remember.
It was a receiver, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the guy from San Diego State. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, I remember it was a receiver.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Can't remember his name. I can't remember his first name now.
I'm gonna look that up real quick.
Where would you guys go first round?
D-end or hybrid linebacker.
That's where I would go. Yeah.
Corner.
And you can't have too many first-round corners in that sector. That's their
right.
identity, man.
God, with
I'm going to go
Pittsburgh,
linebacker.
you might.
I don't know if you harped on it, but what you guys think of some people even throwing out? Oh, hell no! I definitely don't want Hoyer, but they were saying throw out get a guy like Mark Sanchez or something to come here. I know AC will be happy about that.
Who is it?
Mark Sanchez.
That's my boy. I mean, nobody would be happy with that, I'm sure, that are Bengals fans except for me. But I don't know. I think he got a raw deal in New York. I think a lot of guys fell apart around him, and then that was a scheme that was not really fit for him. He had some awesome moments with the Eagles, but I also think he's kind of got a stigma that Dalton has too. When the big play's on the line and you need a big pass, Sanchez doesn't often deliver, but he's a winner like Dalton, and I don't know.
I'm pissed, man. I'm pissed that we're not preparing for a game and we have to talk about the freaking draft, man.
Some people are happy about that.
Oh yeah, some people. I know Chris from Dayton is happy.
Did you listen to the post show? He called in.
What did he say?
His boot tastes good.
I brought that up, and I honestly don't remember what he said.
Guy we're thinking of, by the way, is Colin Lockett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
I didn't say
are.
anything about the boot?
I brought it up, and he just said something like, "Oh, Mickey's not here" or something, so he didn't. I honestly.
Well, he copped out, dude. Part of his bet wasn't it like Dre Kirkpatrick and the wins, and he relied on Dre's stats instead of the win. Remember, he said wasn't he the guy that said we were going to go 4-12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 wins.
Good lord.
The Browns were going to be better. He said we should have gotten Blaine Gabbert. He said a lot of drug-tested. I like him, you know. He just I don't know. I think he was kind of humbly eating crow that day, but he was still saying "I told you so." I think that's what he was doing in the pregame show last week. But at least
Yeah.
he didn't blame Dalton. He was actually giving Dalton a pass.
No, he didn't. He never came back on Wednesdays, but I think he came back post game and was kind of he owned it. He was saying, hey, this team's better than I thought, and to that credit. But obviously when they lost, he was ready to pounce on them.
I'm eager to hear what John was saying tonight. I know John must have went on a rant, fire everybody.
No.
Not really. Yeah, he's relatively positive.
Oh, okay. Good job, John. Good job, man. I sometimes talk him off the ledge on Twitter, man.
Mickey, are you flying into LAX or?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mickey, man, it's hard to say, man, but good luck to your Buckeyes, man. That will be the story of all stories to win that title with a third quarterback, man.
I agree, man. That'd be huge. Thank you.
It pains me because you guys stole one from us, but I'm still not over it. I don't know why. I never will.
I enjoy it.
I tell you what, I enjoyed watching Oregon beat the piss out of Florida State.
Oh, man, you enjoyed it. I was excited, man. I was happy. I mean, especially it was even better to see them all of them walk off the field mad, not even shaking hands and taking crap for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that game was great to watch.
Good show. I'll see you soon, AC.
All right, buddy. Let me. My cell is in that email I sent you, so
I'll email you back.
All right, and we'll figure it out. Yep. See you, buddy.
All right, later, guys.
Fly safe.
See you, Mickey.
Yeah, Fatal. I was. God, I feel like I keep bringing this up, but I was snowboarding New Year's Day, and I was in between runs and stuff. I was grabbing a couple drinks at the lodge, which is super safe when you're snowboarding. But I was in the lodge, and there was a ton of Oregon fans, man, and they were when I caught the game, I'd sit and chill for a little while and watch a game, and a lot of people were cheering for Oregon, so that was pretty cool. Which I wanted Oregon as well for a variety of reasons, but it was a great game for a while, and then Oregon just, oh man, they took it to them.
How high do you guys think?
FSU and New York Jets on us. That looked pretty amazing, pretty incredible. That fumble by Jameis was hilarious, man.
So you're obviously a Miami guy, but you're a Florida guy, so you know a lot about Jameis Winston, and I know I know a lot about Mariota because I see a lot of them out here. Who do you think is a better pro, Winston or Mariota?
Oh man, that's a.
Or is that a completely scheme fit thing?
That's a really good question. I know that Jameis runs the pro style offense, man, and he's clutch. He has a great arm. I think for some reason he reminds me a little bit of Byron Leftwich, that release, that quirky release, but maybe not as bad of a release, but he can get the ball in there when he needs to. I definitely know that he's a big time player in big moments, but all the off-field stuff, man, is definitely troubling. But in terms of pro prospect, I think I will go with Jameis. Call me crazy, but I go with Jameis over pure QB, not off the field. I go with Jameis over Mariota.
I'd agree with it. I guess, depending on what team and what front office you're talking about, it just depends on the value of character over, because Mariota's got the squeaky clean. He's a pretty solid dude. But I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I saw stuff today on Twitter, Scott. I don't know if you saw it. Like, people were comparing Jameis to Ben Roethlisberger, and who was the other one they said? I can't remember the other one, but Ben Roethlisberger was the big comparison I saw.
I could see that a bit. I think Winston has the more NFL pro tools, But I'm gonna say the same thing with Winston as I said with Manziel. Man, I wouldn't touch either one of those guys with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
You can take a chance with knuckleheads at certain positions, but not quarterback. I'm not taking a chance with a knucklehead at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard because it's. Go ahead, buddy.
I was just gonna say, man, you just can't have questionable decision making from your quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I think physical-wise, he's probably 6 or 7 inches taller than Manziel and probably 40 pounds heavier, and that plays a different role. But
physically.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not doing at least from what you see, the club scene where he's just a party guy. He's just kind of an idiot, and you don't know if it's like, okay, is it because he's? I mean, I did dumb stuff when I was 21, 22 years old. Is it because it's just that? Or is it because he's just kind of an idiot, and it's going to continue? That's the roll of the dice you got to have.
Well, I mean, I'll take the club scene over, potentially rape. I mean, he may not have got accused, but I'm fairly concerned that questionable decisions were made at least once. So, I just wouldn't want that type of decision making from my quarterback, and he just doesn't seem to get it. He does it. He gets himself in trouble again.
I mean, to be fair though, I mean, Jeremy Hill was accused of a couple of bad things in college.
Yeah.
But it was something similar to hitting a woman, or I mean, guys can make mistakes and you can recover from it. Look at Big Ben; he's been accused twice. We'd still take him as a quarterback. You just never know with those accusations what is true and what's not. So if they're not charged, I guess you have to go off of that. And unfortunate as it may look sometimes, maybe they get off, but I think that's treading shallow waters there. I wouldn't go off of that. I mean, he wasn't accused, and the other stuff he's done was taking ketchup and crab legs. I mean, like AC said, that's 21-year-old country bumpkin stuff where he's from.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the logic yet. But in fairness to him, as much as I don't like him, it's not as if it's things that are recoverable. Look at Cam Newton. He stole a laptop, transferred to another school, and he bounced back, and he's in the pros, and he had character issues, and he's thriving somewhat. So I mean, you can look past that. I mean, it doesn't always have to be Peyton Manning and Tom Brady squeaky clean.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with the crab legs thing. Quite frankly, I'm fine with the jumping on the table and shouting when he shouted. In and of itself, it would just be like knucklehead. But like, stealing crab legs or taking money is different than rape. I mean, regardless of what exactly happened that night, those are like eons apart as far as like your decision making. Like, any one of us could get a couple pops in us and go grab some crab legs, and it's whatever, it's a knucklehead move.
But it was after. It's the fact that it was after.
Right, exactly. And he already knew the spotlight was on him, and it was like, he still it didn't register. Like, he just, in Roth, I don't want to compare Roethlisberger because I have the same concerns. Roethlisberger has established himself to where he is successful at the next level. His decision making is, I certainly don't agree with, but Jameis hasn't done that yet, So I don't know. Like I said, I would not build my franchise around a guy that has that sort of decision making.
Yeah.
Now Bridgewater, I wouldn't have been against. Someone brought that up to me on Twitter this week, and I wasn't a proponent of them drafting him last year, but I couldn't have argued with it if they did. I like him.
Don't remind me. I'm still bummed about that. He was actually there for the taking. I mean, you can't get mad at the standard pick, but he was there for the taking, and I think he's going to be the best QB in his class.
Oh, no doubt, I agree. I don't understand why the guy slipped.
Joke that he just got passed up. Like, how can you do what he did in college, be so incredible, and just, I don't know how he fell so much. That to this day I'm still baffled. He was the best And all of a sudden, Bortles, because of the intangibles and some of the things he did with his arm, just passed him. I couldn't understand it.
That's the thing. I'll never understand that with the draft process is how these guys, go up and down so far after football stops being played. Manziel was a great example. He was like a 4th-round pick when football stopped being played, and all of a sudden started climbing and climbing and climbing.
Yeah. There's so much stuff that people throw out there just to throw other teams off, and I don't know.
We'll have the inside scoop from Anthony and Mickey and Cody next week of the scouting.
Yeah. I wish you were coming, man.
Wish.
Fatal, or what's your, if you're, okay, first 3 rounds, and I guess first 3 picks, because they might have an additional 3rd-round pick, but first 3 rounds, what do you take for the Bengals, position-wise?
Just position-wise, right? Not a name or anything.
No, well, if you have names, that's cool, but I was thinking more position. But
that's a great question because I guess I don't have it in any particular order, but I'd go left tackle. I wouldn't go first. It all depends on who's there, but I mean, you'd probably want to get D tackle out of the way some way. If you can, I mean, it'll be impossible, but that guy from USC would be monstrous. I'd go D tackle, maybe. If it's best player available, if that type of thing happens, I'd probably go receiver. If it's best player available, or I'd go tight end, and either or with the second, and then on the third, I guess you'd have to probably consider another lineman or a linebacker. I'd definitely go defense 2 of the 3 first picks. For sure. If not all 3.
And to both you guys, do you think Lemur's the answer on the other side?
Health-wise, yeah. If he's healthy, I think he is. But you definitely you have concerns about that. If health, I mean, he was a stud when he was on the field, for the most part. But in terms of trusting that he'll stay there a full 16 games, no.
Yeah.
I thought he played pretty well. I don't know if I'm 100%. If I had other options, I'd certainly look at him.
I think this defense, as weird as it sounds, I think it needs speed. You got a lot of big guys. You got a lot of solid tacklers. You've got a lot of reliable but older corners, and I think they need like a guy like I hate to use him, but an Ed Reed in his prime, a guy that's just back there and he's just like, hey, I'm not even going to tell you what to do on this play. You just kind of read it, react, and chances are you're going to make a big play. And guys that are just faster than most of the guys on the field, and that's why I like a speed rusher. That's why I'd like a read and react quick linebacker. I think I'm pretty happy with the safeties. I mean, Reggie Nelson is getting up there in age, but he just has a knack for making plays. I like George Aloka. I think they need speed and athleticism at corner, but some speed at linebacker, some speed at corner, and then a speed rusher. That's some guys that it's weird. Their defensive line have always been just these mammoth, huge guys, but I don't know. It'd be nice to see kind of a smaller, quicker guy that can get through and past guys.
Yeah, that's a great observation. That's definitely and also athleticism. As much as I don't think we have like the athletic guy on the defense in terms of somebody like a Von Miller or whatever the case may be. Somebody in that mold. I guess we have good enough athletes. They're adequate athletes, but you're right. It will be. I mean, I guess Carlos Dunlap is that one freak of nature, but other than that.
Perfect's kind of freakish.
Yeah, that's true. Perfect flies around. I'm just really concerned about his health, man. He needs to.
I am too.
Yeah.
He needs to definitely clean it up a little bit. He's going back to the Arizona State perfect, and it was a little worrisome last year. It's one thing you can get a concussion is going to come with that position every now and then, but I thought he was really reckless at times, and it paid off the year before, but this year it got really sloppy.
You guys think? Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just gonna say you could see it like that hit that knocked him out in the Indy game. I mean, he purposefully tried to put his helmet into the middle of Luck's sternum, and that's what knocked him out. And like he's got to realize that for him to be of any use to this team, he's got to stay on the field, and he can't play. He just can't play like that.
I forget what game it was, but he barely. I don't know if it was Flacco or if it was after that. Maybe it was Falcons or something. It was he barely hit a guy and he was out.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, and it wasn't like a crown of the helmet thing. It was actually a pretty clean tackle, and it was like, nope, I'm done, I'm out. And it was the Falcons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a sack of Ryan.
Yeah, that one was like, whoa, that one worried me a little bit. I don't know. And then I don't know if you go next year, if you go okay, because Vinny Ray's he's a backup. And Lemur is probably I mean, he's a decent player, but he might be, I think, at most a two-down guy. I almost wonder if you say, hey, Ray, Maluga, thanks, but bye, and you move Burfict to the middle, and then you draft a guy for the other side, and then get another guy.
They have that Sean Porter guy that they love, but unfortunately he seems to be made of glass.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the knee issues are concerning.
Yeah.
I had high hopes for that guy.
I'm with Luka coming back, though. I can't understand a guy to have the year that he had and still get the vitriol that he gets from the fans. I can't. He's definitely a reach on me. I don't know about you guys, but he was awesome when he was on the field, man. I don't worry when he's in coverage anymore. I remember when he used to be in coverage. Oh goodness, where's Luka? Wherever he's at, his guy's wide open. I don't remember that.
Yeah. I go ahead, Scott.
Oh no, go ahead.
I like him. Obviously, he's a USC boy. I like him. I like his attitude. I like his hard hitting. I just think everybody on the back of that defense plays better if that front of that defense plays better. And I think that was the whole key to, aside from some injuries, I think that was the key to this entire season. The front of the defense, which was, getting 40 sacks in a season plus, was just awful. And I think that hurt the linebacker group. But I don't know what you were going to say, Scott.
No, I was just going to say the last 2 years, no one's banged on Ray Maluga more than me. But I was shoveling the crow on Ray this year. I gave him lots of praise. I thought he played great. Fado, you mentioned him in coverage. The thing that they did well this year was they did well getting him off the field in passing situations where he didn't get caught in coverage much. I mean, you saw on Sunday that time when he did get caught in coverage against T.Y. Hilton. That was a bad.
Him and Hilton should never be matched up.
The Colts found him, and you just saw Ray's hair flowing like 5 yards behind T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah. I don't disagree, though. I like him.
Here, man. I don't know about you guys, but I shed a tear every time I think what this offense was supposed to be, man. I mean, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, Jermaine Gresham, Gio, and Jeremy Hill, and that O-line that we have, and it was just I shed a tear every time I think about it. But you know what? Injuries happen, and we should have built a little bit more depth, but you don't ever think of that many guys going out. I mean, come on. That's like Gronkowski and I don't know, Ridley and all of the guys going down at once. That would be like losing Megatron and Ebron and Golden Tate. It's no team is going to recover from that. You never expect that many injuries. So on that front, I know you can build depth, but you never expect that. We were killed this year with injuries.
It's tough because you don't expect that kind of decimation from all those weapons because you really want to rely on some, if not all, of those guys, but you also expect injuries, and I think that's where the shortcomings of Dalton on Sunday really start coming into play. And there's times where the quote unquote elite quarterbacks, they can get past that stuff and they can still make plays. They can create a game plan where it's like, okay, and we can still win the game. And when you saw, I mean, if it's one thing if it's just Gresham or even just Green, and I think we didn't even talk about this. We spent 40 minutes last episode bashing on Green, but him not in there, you saw a noticeable difference. But you saw him and Gresham not in there, it's like, oh man. And I think the major factor is injuries, but I think then you see the injuries and how the shortcomings of your quarterback start to really accentuate in a situation like that, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Even if you are a Dalton supporter.
I mean, Dalton's not going to be able to carry a team like one of those other elite quarterbacks could with injuries, but essentially they were missing their top 4 pass catchers. I mean, if you compare that, like that would be like Peyton Manning missing Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Wes Welker, and Julius Thomas. Like, I mean, that just like completely clears out all of his weapons. I mean, that's tough. But the thing that concerns me and always has is the damn Bengals medical staff. I mean, how many times have we seen these guys that, Marvin Jones, why the hell didn't he have something done with his foot over the summer? How does this keep cropping up? All of a sudden he's out for the year. Tyler Eifert, what the hell happened to him that all of a sudden he wasn't able to come back? Burfict was supposed to be, 2 weeks. Go back to like Levi Jones back in the day and his knee, and Chris Perry and his hernia that lingered on for, what seemed like 10, 12 weeks. Like,
and Burfict too. I mean, Burfict, he was out for a week and then he came back, and then he was out for a week and then he came back, and then he played a couple games. He was out. Like, just say, hey, you know what? This is pretty bad. There's a neck and a concussion issue going on here. Let's sit you for a month. And you're not going to go on IR return. You're not going to go on IR, but let's sit you for a month. Let's rest everything and see what happens from there. We'll put you back in once things start to clear up and feel better, and then we can go from there. And then you sit there, exactly what you said, Scott. You sit there and you go, well, what happened with some of these guys? And Eifert, it's another one. He had surgery. They thought they had a diagnose, and the surgery wasn't done right, or supposedly, or did
last year?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, I thought we had this part cleaned up, and I don't know.
I've questioned their medical staff for. God, I mean, I know it's different now than it was a couple years ago. They changed, but just because the guy retired. But I don't trust this medical staff. I really don't.
Well, they were doing well for a couple of years. There weren't that many issues. This year it was just like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, heck, yeah, there was 3 this year that, they say one thing and next thing you know, the guy's out all year.
Yeah.
Just like. So. All right, boys, I got to hop off.
All right. Fatal, you're the man, buddy.
Hey,
real. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Another good year of a show, man. You guys made the year a lot better, man, and it's always awesome talking to you guys, man.
For sure.
Thanks.
We gotta meet up sometime. Scott, you're the man, buddy. See ya.
See you guys.
It's hard. Where's... I can't see it. I can't see my thing. I can't see my mouse. Oh, no, I see it. Oh, oopsies. I can't.
Just go slower.